YouTube, what's going on, man? It's Father Dark. We're here bright and early on Monday morning. We got some pretty cool, interesting news about Marvel Rivals and some leaks that we got. Thank the data miners for it. Don't know who in particular, but nonetheless, though, they have discovered some really cool leaks for Emma Frost. Now, Emma Frost, just a little bit of a backstory for those of you that aren't fully, into the X-Men lore and all that kind of jazz. Emma Frost is a telepath. But she also has the ability to change her skin into diamond, right? Which is actually really cool, and we'll get into how that will play with her abilities here pretty soon. But nonetheless, though, the data miners had actually what's interesting about it is that they had found voice lines for her, which I'm going to go ahead and post those now really quick.
Never really trusted you in the first place, Frost. I'll admit, you made that look good, Emma. Never liked you, Emma, but we sure could have used you.
As cold-hearted as your name suggests, Frost.
So now that we've heard those, they actually said that she's expected to be a Vanguard primarily. And what's really cool about it is that with her abilities and the fact that she has multiple abilities, like as an X-Men, not just kind of like a primary one, they're actually saying that she might be more like a Cloak and Dagger character where she would be able to, and while I'm explaining this, I'm going to go ahead and post what they said her abilities might be, the different sets. Yeah, but they basically were saying that she might be like a Cloak and Dagger type character, where, Cloak and Dagger, they have the ability to switch in between Cloak and Dagger, obviously, and respectively. And with that, there will be two sets of abilities, like a human form ability and the ability that she might use like in her diamond form. Now, with the different abilities, which I posted just a moment ago, like I said, I think that's really interesting because there's not really, in my opinion, a lot of characters like that in the game. And that kind of is what makes Cloak and Dagger one of my personal favorite characters, is the fact that, you have the ability to be kind of like a healer, and you can attack if you need to. But the difference with Emma Frost is that I think that it would be more of in my head, how I see it is like a team kind of defense, which would kind of help a little bit more with divers and stuff like that. Being able to, kind of the same way that if you think about it, the Thing, for example, when he does his ability where he dives back toward one of his allies, it actually gives you a temporary damage reduction. And I would imagine that they would probably do something similar with Emma Frost. Now I just want to say too, I kind of want to preface, I mean, we've already gotten into the video, but I do kind of want to preface and say that there's been a lot of leaks, and with a game like this, really any game, that's kind of one of the things a lot of people are mostly interested in, because once you kind of have stuff and you're already able to play with it, it's one thing, but it's natural for us as human beings to kind of want to know what's next, what's coming. Like I said, with video games, a lot of people like to focus on leaks, and a lot of people will just kind of throw stuff out there like it's factual. And here on this channel, I try not to do that. I try to just kind of let you guys know that with leaks, they have to be kind of taken with a grain of salt, because there's been lots of stuff that have been found in the game files. I did a video on it before in regards to, everybody was getting all excited over the X-Men leaks. And, the thing that's interesting about it is that the developers, NetEase, they had already stated that, because what basically the controversy with the X-Men thing is that, when people found them in the game files, they tried to go back. Other people tried to go back and say that they were fake leaks simply because there was just too many characters, et cetera, et cetera. There was a lot of kind of drama and controversy that went on with that. And I tried to say in that video as well to kind of take leaks with a grain of salt, simply because the developers had said that they, that basically the amount of content that we've gotten this season is twice the amount that we would get, which would lead me to believe that we're only going to get one character every half of a season, right? So you get one character initially, maybe a map or two, whatever, and then some balance changes and stuff like that. And then with the mid-season update, we would get another one. That would kind of balance out, because this season obviously we've gotten two characters per half of a season. So if you just to cut that in half, then that would lead you to believe that there may only be one character releasing per season. Now they could go back and change that. They could say, hey, we've got enough stuff fully fleshed out. But I feel like they're just trying to kind of take their time to make sure that there's a balance, because if you start getting a little too happy with releasing characters, maybe it becomes a lot harder to kind of balance them and not make other characters kind of seem irrelevant. But it is an interesting thing, simply because there are so many characters in the game files that have been released, or not released, but that people have data mined and then released that information. I mean, we're up to probably, I'd say maybe 12 or 13 or so different heroes and villains, obviously, that they found in the game files. But the thing that kind of separates what I'm willing to talk about in regards to actual leaks and stuff is how fleshed out they are, right? Is there some type of character model, and even though that's not something that I have seen per se, like in regards to any leaks, having voice lines is a kind of a more of a clear indicator that it's something that's actually kind of around the corner and realistically may be happening. And, also just want to add too, if you're looking for, more of a summarized version of this, I did release a short as well, or I'm going to release a short shortly after the release of this video, where I'll also be going more into detail and kind of explaining, some different things. But also too, one of the interesting things that they found in the files in the data mined were some interactions with Magneto and Psylocke. And those were supposed to be like team up interactions. And they said they were going to enhance her strategic gameplay abilities because Emma Frost is known as a strategist. And they said there was also a character that is yet to be revealed that seems to synergize with her. And a lot of people are thinking that might be Cyclops. So that's definitely something that is interesting because I do feel like they're probably personally going to start releasing more X-Men simply because, I've said this since the beginning, but with this being like a Marvel game, it's a really good way for them to introduce characters that they're planning on having like in the movies and stuff. And for those of you that haven't been following the Marvel universe or the MCU, I'd say the cinematic universe that closely, everything has been kind of leading up to the X-Men simply because Marvel, because Marvel Comics and the Marvel cinematic universe, the MCU, are two different things, right? Marvel back in like the 90s, instead of facing bankruptcy, they actually sold a lot of their rights to different studios. So that's why like when they first started making Marvel movies, they only had the rights to certain characters like Iron Man, Thor, Black Widow, Hawkeye, etc., right? And even with the Hulk, it was kind of weird. I think Universal owns the rights to like the Hulk, Universal Studios, but they were able to kind of like how they are with Spider-Man right now. They're able to like put him in movies. I guess it was just something contractually where they couldn't give him his own individual movies, but he was allowed to be like in Avengers movies. And it's kind of the same thing with Spider-Man. Spider-Man is owned by Sony, right? They were smart enough to buy his rights very early on, which is why all the previous Spider-Man movies were made by Sony up until Civil War, where the Marvel universe's Spider-Man was Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sorry, their version of Spider-Man was introduced into the movies. But even still, they have some kind of weird. It's a very complicated thing where they have some kind of weird, like it's like publishing deal or something with Marvel. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they're able to put him in movies, but they have to like split the profits or something with Sony. I don't know exactly how that works. But yeah, not only do they own Spider-Man, but they own pretty much all of his like rogue villains and stuff, which is why you've seen a lot of Sony movies made without Spider-Man, like Kraven the Hunter, Venom, what was it, Madam Web or whatever that was. Same thing with like Into the Spider-Verse and stuff like that. Those are all like Sony movies, if I'm not mistaken. Nonetheless, though, the point that I was originally making was that with the X-Men, they were originally owned by Fox along with the Fantastic Four, and there may have been some other characters in there, like I think Deadpool as well. That's why originally all of those movies were made by Fox, but Fox kind of eventually buckled under the fact that their movies had just kind of been a failure in comparison to Marvel's movies, and they allowed them to obtain the rights to all these different characters, which is why we're getting a Fantastic Four movie that is releasing in, what is it? I think it's July. I could be wrong on the dates, but I know it's coming up very soon. I'm definitely going to see that. I love the Fantastic Four, and I've put up with a lot of stuff like the X-Men and Fantastic Four, Deadpool and stuff, which actually I feel like Fox actually did a really good job with Deadpool. I feel like that was kind of like the exception, right? But outside of that, though, I feel like they've kind of failed in regards to all their other properties that they owned at the time and creating movies for them and stuff. Nonetheless, though, like I was saying originally, the point that I made to kind of sum all that up was that, with Marvel Rivals, they have the potential to really like introduce a lot of stuff and get people more hyped for things through the game, because the game is so popular with a lot of people that aren't necessarily into like comic books or as into the movies and stuff. So I do think that that's something that they're kind of like building their way up to. And even with, I was going to do another video on it, but I'll kind of touch on it lightly here. Blade has been another character that has been being built up like in Marvel Rivals since the beginning of the season. It might even have been a little bit last season or season 0, if we even want to consider that a season. But nonetheless, they've been building up his presence for a while, with Dracula and stuff like that, because who else is better to kind of have in a storyline with Dracula than the guy who, that's his whole thing is taking care of vampires and stuff. So Blade, and with the new map, I forget the name of it, but the one that's kind of like, part of Dracula's lair or whatever it is, that actually has Blade in that map. Like, you can literally see him like chained up and stuff and captured by Dracula, which is part of the actual story for Marvel Rivals. And people are saying that by the end of the season, which would make sense, obviously, he'll be freed and he'll be a character that we'll be getting next season. So I would think that realistically, we could expect to get him and Emma Frost. But like I was saying originally, though, you got to take these things with a grain of salt. A lot of people, they'll hear someone say, oh, well, this character may be coming, and they just kind of, they kind of don't pay attention to the maybe part or whatever, and they just kind of get it in their head that this is definitely something that's happening. And like I said, it's up to the developers. They could have 3 or 4 different characters that they have on a board right now that are fully fleshed out. They have the files in the game, just kind of like if they need to press the button to activate them if need be, or whatever the case is. But they could go in a different direction. But like I said, though, with all the other characters, they don't even have voice lines. I don't think anyone's found voice lines for Blade yet, and we know that he's definitely probably more than likely coming to the game, to the point to where there's fully rendered files of him and stuff like that. But we still don't know like abilities and things like that. So that might be something that they're kind of holding off, knowing that people are vigorously, going through the files and stuff to get these leaks out here, because it's definitely a hot topic amongst, creators and stuff like that. So, like I said, I do think it's like really interesting. I think that Emma Frost, her abilities could be really interesting. I would love to see her as a tank and see a tank that's very similar to like Cloak and Dagger, because like to me, I just think those are like some of the coolest characters where you can switch between their abilities versus characters that are a lot more straightforward and just kind of have the abilities that they have, which is predominantly what we have in the game. Obviously, I don't think there's any other characters like Cloak and Dagger at the current moment. But like I said, though, me personally, I think that she'd be a really cool character. I'm really interested to see what they're gonna do with her, if they're gonna release her, and what's gonna be coming. But you guys can let me know in the comments, though. Would you be interested in a tank player that had like the team type of protection, kind of like an expanded upon version of the Thing? And instead of it being something that just kind of affects, and also too, I mean, I think you have like, different tanks too that kind of do that as well, but like on a smaller scale, like Magneto and the Hulk being able to like give people shields. I mean, Magneto can kind of choose who he wants to give it to, but the Hulk, he does it like if you're close enough to him, like the whole team was close enough, he could just give everybody a shield, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I have seen numerous people be shielded by him that were, standing right next to him at the time. So, but yeah, let me know in the comments though, like what you guys think about that. I'm genuinely curious what the community thinks about it. And how you feel, if you think that's a bad idea, you think it's a good idea. Everybody seems to have different insight and stuff like that. I can look at something and think it'd be a great idea, and then someone can explain to me 10 different reasons why it's not. So I'm definitely interested. Also too, let me know if you guys are excited for Blade, and if you want me to do a video. I mean, I'll probably do one regardless, but let me know if you guys want me to do a video breakdown of all the stuff that we have leaked and all the different, because there's actually a lot of different little like teasers for him, like in the game, outside of him literally just appearing and just kind of being a in one of the maps that just released. But outside of that, though, like I said, there's a lot of different little like breadcrumbs and stuff that have been left for Blade that are actually in the game already and have been there for a while. So yeah, let me know about that. But like I said, that's all, and I appreciate you guys for watching. I'm Father Dark, and I'm out.